With that, let's go into our demo section. So we received this request. This person is asking to see a demo of like identify IOC as threat and the process, the response process. So Aaron, feel free to take the way. I'm gonna stop sharing right now. You
All
can,
right.
you can share your screen right now, I believe.
All right. I think it's loaded. Let me move Zoom so it's out of my way. All right. So the first thing that I want to do before we dive into this is I want to highlight that last question we had about indicators. So if we come to our events and we go over to indicators, you can see that we have quite a few here. And if I wanted to search for one, say I wanted to look for an IP address, I can type that in and then it would populate that and we would be able to see more information around this. Now, to enable this, we can go to administration. We would go to events and then we can go to indicators and we can see all of the field names that have been enabled. All right. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump into a little bit of the demo portion. So I went and I created a record for this. So inside of this container, we have a couple different things. So we have a request URL, we have an IP address, we have another URL. And notice these are two different field names. We have destination address, we have another IP address, we have three IP addresses, and we have a file hash.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you zoom in a little bit so we can
Yeah,
do this?
how's that?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry about that. So again, we have a URL here, and notice that this is request URL. We have an IP address. Now we have another URL, but this uses a different field name. And then we have a couple more IP addresses and we have a file hash. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a playbook that we can use to enrich this. So I'm going to use a shortcut. If you hit Shift P, this is going to take us to our playbooks. And we have a couple different tabs right here. So if I want to look at the internal repository, these are going to be playbooks that we've developed inside of our platform. We can filter off this. And the one that I created earlier today is called IOC enrichment. So let's open this up. All right. So inside of this playbook, the first thing that we're going to do is we want to start off with a filter block. The reason that we start with a filter block is so that way we can make sure that before we try to enrich an IP address, a URL, or any type of data, we want to make sure that it first exists. Because if we don't have, say, we don't have this filter here, and I kick this playbook off, and it's going to go down this IP line, this playbook or the container might not have an IP address. So this whole branch is going to fail. And similarly, if there's no URL, this branch would fail, and so would this one. So with that being said, we can use filter blocks to basically check to see if data exists before we even try to check on it. So with this playbook, we're going to add some more information to it. If you notice, we have an IP enrichment, we have URL enrichments, but we don't have a file hash enrichment. And we'll add that in just a second. Now, there's a couple different ways that we can do this. So we're going to utilize a custom function that I created. It's called public and private IP filter. Now, if this isn't in your environment today, don't worry, it's going to be coming. This is something that was recently added. But essentially what this does is you can feed in a list of IP addresses. It doesn't matter if it's 5 or 10,000, and it's going to sort them out. So that way we're not trying to enrich our private IP addresses. That's just not good practice. So underneath this, we have this filter block. And essentially we're going to look to see, and actually we have this cool data previewer. So let's do it like this. So we can look to see if we have a public IP address. And let's let's pump in a ticket number right here. That way we can see actual data. Perfect. Now, if an IP exists, we're going to run it through VirusTotal. We'll also run it through IP info. Now, if you guys aren't using IP info, it's a fantastic product. It's completely free. You can get, I believe, 50,000 API calls a month. And essentially, you can go to ipinfo.io and register for an account. And it's just going to give you a little bit more information about who the IP belongs to, what country they belong in, um, longitude, latitude, all kinds of information. We'll take a look at what that comes back with. And then from here, we're going to take a look and we're going to do another filter block. Now, you might notice that we have a lot of filter blocks inside of this playbook, and we're not really doing anything with decision blocks. And that's by design. So if I were to go and send a list of IP addresses in this case for enrichment, maybe I have 5. Well, 4 of those IP addresses come back clean, and one of them is malicious. If I were to use the decision block, as long as one of those artifacts meets that condition, it will send all 5 of those to be blocked. So, and when we're looking at trying to block something or really trying to pick out pieces, filter blocks are going to be the way to go because a filter is going to look at each item individually. So when we use a filter block in this case, it's only going to block the malicious IP address. Now we have a couple different things going on here. So with our filter block, what we're doing is we're going to look to see for our IP info, and I'll pull it up on this side. IP info right here. Now you might notice that some of this text is green, and whenever we come back to the start block, this text is purple. Now the difference in the color is that the green text is going to be simulated data. Essentially, that's the app showing you, hey, look, this is what you can kind of expect to come back. And the purple is what we actually got back. So if we come down here, one of the fields underneath the summary is going to be country. So what we want to do is we want to check this country. We want to make sure that it's something that is going to be safe. Now, instead of me going and adding in the United States and Canada and South America and all of those other countries, we can't really do that inside of this filter block. It's just not big enough, and it's not going to be manageable whenever we try to scale things up. So inside of SOAR, we can use custom lists. So I'll pivot back over here, and I'm going to show you a custom list that we created. So this list is called approved countries, and you can come in and you can add whatever countries that you want. You can have really any kind of custom list. You can download these, you can upload CSVs and use those. And SOAR can actually scan the playbooks or scan the custom list and run them in the playbooks. So essentially, this is going to say, look, if when we do an IP lookup and it's not on one of our approved country lists, then we're just going to say that it's going to be bad. Now we can also do our VirusTotal reputation. And in this case, we're just going to say, hey, if it comes back as malicious, 1 or greater, then we're going to block our IP using Zscaler. So this is one way that we can kind of filter out data, and then we can double filter it. And then we can even utilize custom lists. Now, when we talk about doing things with Splunk Attack Analyzer, there's a two-step process to it. So for this URL lookup, the first thing that we want to do is we want to detonate our URL. So we could detonate a URL, we could detonate a file, we could do all kinds of really cool things with Splunk Attack Analyzer. But once we have that done, then there's another action in Splunk Attack Analyzer that we can use called Get Job Summary. Now, I've gone and I've renamed some of these action blocks, so that way it's a little bit easier to understand and easier to read. So essentially, we're going to get our results back from Splunk Attack Analyzer, and we're going to say, look, if our score, and you can see over here as I'm clicking around, some of these are popping up, but you can see that if our score is greater than or equals to 60, then we're going to go and we're going to come down here to this utility, and this utility is called a list merge. Now, One of the questions that came up earlier was, how can we take multiple different fields of data and kind of bring them together inside of a playbook? And we can utilize these list merges to do that. Now, what we're going to be merging is we're going to be merging our URLs from that we send to Splunk Attack Analyzer, and we're going to merge it with the URLs that we send to Talos. And then once we do that, we can send them to Zscaler to be blocked. So with Talos, um, all of our Splunk SOAR cloud customers, this is an offering that is now included, but it comes with Cisco Talos Intelligence for free. So it's not going to cost you any more money or anything like that. It's just something you get, which is pretty cool. So the field that we want to look at whenever we are looking at Talos is going to be this trusted field. So underneath our results, let's come down here and we're going to look inside of Talos. If I can find it, Talos. Perfect. And we have this field called threat level. So Talos is really good. It gives us two options. It's either going to be trusted, which would be something that's good, or it's going to be untrusted. So essentially, what we're going to filter on is to see if that threat level comes back as anything that's not trusted, then we're just going to go and block it because it's not something that Talos trusts. So now we can utilize this merge list and we can send that to Zscaler to block the domain. Now, what we want to do is we're going to add in the piece for our file enrichment. Okay. Now, in the top right over the data previewer, there's this little pin right here. If I want to click on different blocks and keep this up, I can toggle this on. If I leave it off, if you notice as I click on these other blocks, that data is going to change. But the one that I want to look at is going to be the start block. So if I look down here, I can see that there's a purple field and it's this hash. Now, one of the really nice things about the data previewer is that to the right of this, we have a little copy icon. Now, when we click this, this is going to copy our data path, which makes it really, really easy to be able to add data. Now, I'm going to add a condition, and I want to name this condition. And we're going to say file hash, exists. Now, I need to give it a parameter. And because I copied this data path, I said, look, if this hash exists, I want to look at that. And actually, I need to look at this one. That one's the container. I need to look at the artifact. Now, we're going to say if this is not equal to anything. So basically, as long as it exists. Now, when we looked at our ticket, we had two different hash values. We had two different hash fields. We had a field called file hash, and we also had a field called hash. Now, we want to make sure that we're looking at both of those. So right now, we said, look, if the hash exists, then we're going to do something. Now, I'm going to grab this file hash, and I'm going to put this right here. And I'll say, as long as there's a value in the hash or the file hash, we want to run down this path. Now, since it's number 4 and I'm really OCD, I'm going to drag it over here. And now I need to readjust some of my blocks to give myself some room. Now you don't have to readjust your blocks. I'm very OCD about it just because I've done this for so long. And the thing is that today we might be building this playbook out and we know exactly how it works. Well, part of my background before working in security was development. And that means that we know what's going on today, but tomorrow or in 6 weeks, we have no idea what's happening. So I want to just make this really easy so that way I can see everything that's going on. Now, we have two different field values. Now we could build this out in a way to where, all right, we're going to add an action block and we're going to send this to virus total. And then we're going to pipe in one field and then we're just going to rebuild that workflow. Well, we don't really need to do that. So inside of SOAR, your artifacts in these Ceph fields or your common event fields, these are treated as a list. Whether it's one or there's multiple, it treats them as a list. So we can go to our utility, which is a purple wrench, and then we could go look for list merge. And it'll give you a description of what it does, but just know for the sake of what we're doing today, the list merge is going to allow us to merge multiple fields. And I want to give it a name. So under info, we can give it a custom name and we'll just say merge file hashes. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to look for this filter. It's IOCs exist. Now we could do it either through mapping the data this way. We can also come in and we could look for our filter IOCs exist, and we can do it over here. So there's multiple ways that we can do this. But for this, we'll just say IOCs exist. We can see our filtered artifacts, and then we can see all of our Ceph fields. So I know that one of these fields is called hash. We have a file hash. We'll just pick that one up. And then there's another field, and that one is called file, or that one's just called hash. And we'll look down here and we can see we have a hash. But this is the artifact headers. So that may or may not be the one that we want. So to double check, we can come back on this side. We'll go to our start block. We have our container, which this is what we want to see, and then our artifacts. So we have one inside of our artifacts called file hash, and the other one's called hash. So we want to make sure that we map it right. So under our artifacts, we're just going to go ahead and we'll add this field. And we can do it by typing in hash because that's the name of this field. And now it highlights in purple and I can use that data. So from this, what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to send these file hashes to Aristotle, if I can spell. And we're going to use the v3 and we'll say file reputation. Now we have to select our asset. The one that we're going to use today is VT3. And for our file hash, again, we could do it this way, but let's do it the new way. We'll go to our merge file hashes and we can see where it says item. We can click copy on our data path, and then we can just paste this in here. So now I don't have to worry about going through and remapping my data because I can see it. And I'm just going to rename this and we'll just say virus total file hash lookup. Now I want to use another filter block. And the reason that we're going to use a filter block is, again, I have more than one value that's going to be passed to this. I want to make sure that I'm only going to block the malicious hash. So for this, we'll just say malicious hash. And then let's go and we're going to use our data previewer. We can see where we renamed it to virus total file hash lookup. And if we come down, we can see where it says hash merge file hash custom. Okay. We can keep going down. And there should be something for an input. Here it is. So when we're looking at our data preview, the very top shows our inputs. This is going to be the value that is sent over into virus total. Now, the bottom under our results, this is what we're going to get back or expect to get back from that action. Okay. So what we can do is we're going to say, okay, we're going to look at this merge file hashes. Now we're on our filter blocks. We'll do virus total file hash lookup, and then we can pipe in this hash. Easy enough. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say if this is greater than or equal to 1, keep it simple today, then we're going to go down this file path that's malicious. Now from here, what do we want to do? Well, let's go ahead and we'll block it. So let's block it using Carbon Black. And then we can go and I could look all the way through this list. It's quite a few actions, or we can go to the search. And if I go to app, well, by action, we can say block hash. And then this is going to show us block hash. And it's going to show us that we have the ability to block it with Carbon Black, or we can unblock it. So we'll select Carbon Black. Now the hash that we want to put in, we want to look at our, we're going to turn off that filter, virus total file hash lookup. Nope, that's that one. We need to go from, actually, yeah, we'll go through this and we're going to pipe in this file hash. So in order for it to come down to this filter, it's going to have to go through there. So we should be good on that. Now for our comment, we could do something where if we wanted it dynamic, we could say virus total summary. And then we could come in to our data previewer. And if we go to the virus total file hash lookup, we can come all the way down here at the very bottom. And we could just get this message. And this message is going to show us the harmless, the malicious, suspicious, and undetected count. So now inside of virus total, whenever we run this, it's going to block this hash and it's going to add a comment of that summary. So let's go ahead and let's see if this works. And I'll just go ahead and I'll drag this over here and we'll rename this real quick. So Carbon Black block hash. Now, my naming convention might be a little bit different than what your company uses, and that's totally fine. As long as you guys pick a naming convention that works to you or works for you guys and you stick to it, you should be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll save this playbook and we're going to say testing file hash lookup. So we can run this one of two ways. So we could run this from inside of our playbook editor. If we go to debug, we can change our scope to all artifacts. And this is going to run it against everything. Now we can hit test or we could hit save and run, but we just saved it. So let's hit test. And in just a second, we're going to be going all the way through. We're getting all kinds of stuff. All right. So we had some problems and that's totally okay. Block IP cannot be run. You know what? We need to run this against a different ticket. So, and that's totally okay because the way that this works is that since this is a demo environment, we're not actually making API calls to the actual platforms. We have our own test apps. So we got to make sure that the data is right. So what we'll do is we're going to go and we'll run this on a different one. Let's say 87. I think that was one I was testing on earlier. So we'll hit save and run. Testing again. We're still getting some stuff, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at our ticket. So if we come over here to 89, this was the first one that we ran it against. We can scroll down and we can see some of our widgets ran successfully. We can see that our virus total IP reputation, it failed. Our IP lookup failed and our block IP on Zscaler failed. Well, I wonder why that is. So let's go ahead and we're going to debug. So let's jump back over to 89 and we're going to start doing some debugging. So our filter, this is going to be looking for destination IP exists. Okay, so let's go to our start block and let's filter for this field. So destination address. All right, so that address looks okay. Perfect. So from here, what we can do is we can, it says we're going to look at the filtered IOC existed condition 2. So let's look at that. So if we come over here, we can go to filter, IOC. And then we're looking at the condition 2. IOC exists, IP. Yeah. Let's just go ahead and we're going to pipe in that destination address, because in order for the filter block to get to this point, it should have that. So let's see if that fixed it. So we can hit save and run. Oops. Go to our debugger. We'll save it. Testing IP fix. We'll do it on all artifacts and we'll run this down. We still got a little bit of red, but I didn't make my sacrifice to the demo gods. But yeah, it doesn't like that filtered data, and that's okay. But essentially, this is the process that we would go through. So we would go in and we could add in this side for the file hash. And if we look at this playbook, we can go and we could do a little bit deeper dive. And again, the reason it didn't work and it's not going to give us anything back is because this is a demo environment, unfortunately. But with that being said, that's how easy it is for us to go in and we can add in different fields. We can for our playbooks and map our data and those kinds of things. So with that being said, are there any questions that you guys would like to look at while we have this up? I know we have a couple minutes left.
Jay, or Aaron, there was a question Jay asked about taking these IOCs or the outputs of some of these and report them to your management. I guess I'll kind of start down that pathway, and I don't know if there's some things you want to show. So Jay, to answer your question, any connector or action has access essentially to those values, meaning if you want to go and write those values to ServiceNow, if you want to go and write those values into an email, into a Slack message, into a Microsoft Teams message, if you want to go put them into a notes within enterprise security as part of the incident, again, there's literally thousands of actions within SOAR that you can write to, and you can use all of those values that you then have.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that you can do, so if you're talking about taking all of those IOCs lists and merging them together, one of the best blocks to use is actually going to be this format block. So what's great about this format block is you can write in it in Markdown. You could do it in HTML if that's how you wanted to do it, or you can just do it in plain text. You can add different parameters, so it'll be dynamic. And you can take these format blocks, and we'll just pipe this over here. This way, this format block now has access to all of the data above it. We could come down and we could use an action to send an email. Now, inside of your email, you can even you could pass in this format block, or if you wanted to, you could pass in you could write it out in HTML and have all of that looking nice and pretty, and then pass the data in from your format block in as a table if you want to do that. So that way they can see all of that information. And of course, on the other side of it, we do also have executive dashboards with all kinds of different metrics and those types of things inside of Splunk.
Want to sign up for a future community office hours? From community.splunk.com, select events, then office hours Ask the Experts to register for a session across platform, security, or observability. Hope to see you in the next one.